critics think that the president who built his campaign on change should have come out stronger against Iran's violent refusal to change many Iranians believe in, that some are dying for, and others in jail now and facing who knows what. So let's talk about what Iran might do to them, and that $3,000 bullet fee that we mentioned also. Author and Professor Azar Nafisi lived through Iran's last revolution and the violent crackdowns that followed. I'm sure you've read a number of her best-selling books. Before I get to the specifics of this $3,000 bullet fee, also the fate of these detainees, did you hear anything different from the president that encouraged you or discouraged you, Azar?
The most encouraging thing that I heard in President's statements today was the fact that he mentioned about the Iranian regime's accountability to its own people, and he related that accountability to international accountability. I think that is very important, because how could the US or any other country trust the Iranian government or think that they will be responsible and accountable to them if they're not accountable towards their own people, and also reaffirmation of the right of Iranian people to free speech and free assembly. I was not quite clear what he meant by how this will play out. When will Mr. Ahmadinejad be considered as not quite legitimate in the eyes of his own people?
Well, maybe it will be after we see what happens. For example, the detainees. We're hearing now from an Iranian judge this special court will be created, and these detainees will be made examples of. What do you think that means? Is that torture? Is that execution? Is that humiliation?
Well, you know, it could mean all of them, at least based on how we have seen this government, especially the part that Mr. Ahmadinejad represents, acting over the past 30 years. And we have already seen the repetition of some of the worst crimes they committed at the beginning of this revolution. Now we see it again. During the Cultural Revolution, they were accused of stealing the bodies of the murdered students from the hospital morgues so that they could not be identified. And so we are seeing a repetition of that.
And Azar, I want to ask you about this $3,000 bullet fee. And we're going to talk to Ivan Watson about the journalist who brought this information to light for the Wall Street Journal. He knows her well. But here's what we found absolutely stunning, that in order to get the body back of your loved one that's been killed by the military, you have to pay this $3,000 bullet fee. It just seems so hard to comprehend that this is fact.
Well, I have actually talked about it in my own books, and this is documented. At the beginning of the revolution, people who belong to the opposition groups or have participated in demonstrations, they would do various things. One would be they would tell their relatives and the family that they need to pay for each bullet, both to humiliate, mainly to humiliate and to intimidate and frighten them. Also, they would not allow them to be buried in the usual cemeteries. There was a place they called the Cemetery of the Damned, and they would just hurl the bodies of the people they had executed into one hole. That happened to my own relatives, my cousin's wife, who was murdered. So I know about that firsthand.
Well, it's mind-boggling, and we're going to continue, obviously, to try and point out these issues of inhumane treatment and talk more about the justice, of course, that the Iranian people truly want as we follow this continued movement. Azar Nafisi, so great to talk to you. Always appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.